My life's work is to help couples stay together and stay happy. Some divorces are necessary, but many are not. So I want to review with you the top 4 predictors of divorce and how to combat them. We're actually going to cover the first 2 today, but just to list the 4, to rattle them off, Dr. John Gottman describes them as criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Criticism is making a personal attack instead of addressing a behavior. It's labeling people, saying, you jerk, you idiot, you witch. It's saying things like, you always or you never. You always leave a mess. You're never kind to my mother. These types of things trigger defensiveness. Not true. I sometimes pick up after myself. I'm nice to your mom sometimes. It triggers defensiveness, and it makes people fight instead of hearing what you have to say. The cure for criticism is what is known as gentle startup. So if you're being critical, that's harsh startup. Right? If you're saying you always, you never, you're calling names, that's harsh startup. The cure for criticism is gentle startup. It's addressing a behavior and expressing a positive need. So for example, instead of saying you never clean up after yourself, you say something like, if you would be mindful of cleaning up after yourself, I would feel very loved. Right? Or I know my mom isn't the easiest to get along with, but if you would make the effort to just be patient with her, it would mean a lot to me. That type of thing. Okay, that's the cure for criticism. Contempt is the second of these 4 top predictors of divorce. Contempt is an attitude of superiority. It manifests itself in scoffs, eye rolls, sarcasm, and in basically pointing out the faults of the person that you are with. If you're occupying the space of contempt, that is the number 1 predictor of divorce. So how do you combat that? Well, it's about building a culture of appreciation. What that means is instead of seeing the annoyances and seeing the things that bother you or anger you, instead you're looking for the good. You're looking for the positive. And at least 5 to 1, for every 1 negative interaction where you're arguing or fighting or giving feedback on what someone could do better, there should be at least 5 times where you're telling them what you appreciate about them, what you love about them, expressing gratitude, things like that. It's all about building this culture in your home where you are raising each other up, you're praising each other. That's how you counter contempt. So those are the first 2. Tomorrow we're going to address defensiveness and stonewalling, what they are and how to resolve them. This is the top 4 predictors of divorce, part 2. Yesterday we covered criticism and contempt and how to deal with those. Today we're going to cover defensiveness and stonewalling. These are based on Dr. John Gottman's 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. What to do about defensiveness in your relationship. You try to approach your partner and they get defensive. Or they approach you and you get defensive, and it takes one of 2 forms. Launching a counterattack or playing the victim. You know what this looks like. If someone says to me, you never do the dishes, a counterattack would be, oh yeah, and you're vacuuming something to brag about? Playing the victim, on the other hand, is what I like to call mother-in-law syndrome. Now, this is not my mother-in-law. I've just seen this happen a lot. Let's just say hypothetically, once again, my mother-in-law does not do this. Let's just say hypothetically, my mother-in-law came over to watch our kids, and we said, please have them in bed by 8. Don't let them eat any sugar or watch any TV, because then they won't go to sleep. And we come home at 10 o'clock from our date, and lo and behold, they're still awake. And there's candy wrappers everywhere, and they're watching a movie, and they're bouncing on the couch, and she just feels overwhelmed. And we say to her, we told you, don't give them any sugar, right? And don't let them watch TV. So what does she do? Instead of owning the behavior, she would become defensive, and that would take the form of playing the victim, and it would look like this. I guess I'm just a terrible grandmother. I guess I'll just never come over anymore because you can't count on me, you can't rely on me, right? That type of thing. Now, what is she doing? She wants us to say, no, it's okay, you're fine, everything you did is fine, there's no problem, right? That way she would get out of trouble. That form of defensiveness gets you out of trouble. But it also keeps people from trusting you. It pushes them away and makes people feel like they can't talk to you. So how do we overcome defensiveness in our relationships? The answer is personal responsibility. If someone confronts you with something, even if you don't like their tone, even if you think they're exaggerating or blowing it out of proportion, if you can find a kernel of truth in there, of something that you can own, and you could say, I'm sorry, you're right, what can I do to make it better? Or what can I do to change? it's amazing how the balloon just gets deflated. Just there's no fight. There's no fight left. This happens in my marriage sometimes where my wife will tell me, give me feedback on something that she wants me to do better, and she might be upset or annoyed about it. And I say, you're right. I'm sorry. What can I do to make this right? Now, that's me at my best. Sometimes I get defensive anyway. But when I say that, it's amazing how the fight just, and she says, yeah. And I say, yeah. She goes, okay. And I say, okay. And then there's no fight. We're most of us far too proud and far too quick to get defensive and to throw things back in the other person's face or to try and get off the hook by playing the victim. But the cure for defensiveness is taking personal accountability. And usually the other person will say, I'm sorry I got so upset. Or it makes it easier for them to be accountable for their stuff at a different time. All right. And the fourth top predictor of divorce, so we had criticism and contempt in our last video. Today we have defensiveness. The last one is stonewalling. Stonewalling is giving no indication that you are listening. Hello, thanks for hopping on. Stonewalling is giving no indication that you are listening, right? Someone's talking to you and you're either not looking at them or you're just not speaking. It's often called the cold shoulder, but there's a lot of reasons why people do it. We might stonewall because we're afraid if we open our mouths, we're going to say something awful, and we're going to get mean, and just biting our tongue is the last line of defense. Or we might be afraid that if we speak up, what we have to say is going to anger the other person. Or we might feel like they're wrong, and they need to apologize, and I'm going to show them how wrong they are because I'm just not going to talk to them until they apologize and own that they're the ones at fault, right? We do this, but what ends up happening, the other person feels disrespected, and they get angrier. Why aren't you talking to me? Look at me when I'm talking to you. Don't you walk away from me. These are the responses to stonewalling, and it doesn't build relationships. So how do we heal from stonewalling? If we're upset, we say, listen, I want to hear you, but I'm too angry right now, or I'm too upset right now. I need to calm down. Then take 5 minutes, 20 minutes, a couple hours, a day, calm down. And as long as you come back and re-engage and resolve the problem, then they can have that pattern that you're going to come back and resolve the problem when you're ready. The answer for stonewalling, the cure for stonewalling is self-soothing. Instead of waiting for the other person to say that they were wrong so that I can feel better, I'm just going to calm down, right? Instead of waiting for the other person to... instead of waiting for them to calm down so I can be calm, right, I just need to calm myself down. If I'm afraid I'm going to say something hurtful, then I just need to calm down. If I'm afraid of their reaction, I still need to calm down so I'm not afraid anymore, right? That's the cure for stonewalling.